All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a YouTube video that kind of set the internet on fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Your Average at Best video, and it features a conversation between this relationship advisor named Kevin Samuels
Hmm.
and a woman who's calling in for some dating advice.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating how much debate this video sparked
Oh, yeah.
about dating and gender roles and the role of money in relationships.
For sure. I went into this honestly thinking it was just going to be like another dating advice video.
Right.
But it gets pretty deep pretty fast. We have this 35-year-old woman.
Okay.
She's a successful business owner, and she's saying she's having trouble finding the kind of partner she's looking for.
Mhm.
She's got a 13-year-old son, and she's saying she specifically wants to date a man who earns at least 6 figures.
Okay, interesting. So that's where Kevin Samuels comes in, I guess.
Yeah.
As the relationship advisor.
Yeah.
And he has a very direct style.
Yeah.
Which, some people find refreshing, some people find a bit harsh.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He doesn't sugarcoat anything.
No, he does not.
He tells her pretty much point blank that she needs to be realistic about her options, considering that she considers herself to be average looking
Okay.
and has a kid. He even uses this phrase, average looking women tend not to get high earning men.
Wow.
Do you think that direct approach is helpful or potentially hurtful in a situation like this?
That's a good question. I think he's definitely challenging her perceptions.
Yeah.
But it's a very fine line between being honest and being insensitive.
Yeah, for sure.
It seems like his whole argument is based on this idea of hypergamy.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. What exactly is hypergamy, and how is Samuels using it to frame his advice here?
So basically, hypergamy is this idea that women are kind of biologically driven to seek partners of equal or higher status.
Okay.
So Samuels is using this concept to explain, why, in his view, a high-earning man might not be attracted to a woman in her situation. He emphasizes that for the type of men that she's looking for, her own financial success doesn't really matter.
Interesting.
He actually says, men don't care about your money. Not the kind of men that you want.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. It's almost like he's suggesting that a woman's financial independence can actually be a detriment in the dating world,
Yeah.
at least when she's trying to find a high-earning partner. It's a bit jarring to hear, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
especially, in today's world where women are increasingly financially independent.
Right.
And I think it really raises this question of whether traditional ideas about gender roles are still, very ingrained in our dating culture.
Absolutely. And he doesn't stop there. Samuels also brings up her age, implying that time is not on her side, especially if she wants a high-status partner.
Right.
It's like he's saying that the older a woman gets, the fewer options she has, regardless of her accomplishments.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any truth to that, or is he just kind of perpetuating outdated stereotypes?
That's a complex issue. I mean, there's no doubt that society views aging differently for men and women.
Right.
But whether those perceptions, directly translate to dating success is debatable.
For sure. He goes on to tell her that women have been sold this false narrative that they can have it all,
Oh, wow.
implying that settling for less is often necessary, especially when it comes to finding a partner. It's interesting because on the one hand, he seems like he's trying to be realistic,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it feels a bit like he's setting women up for disappointment.
It definitely raises the question of what constitutes settling in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it about compromising on certain qualities or values? Or is it about finding someone who meets your basic needs
Yeah.
and you can build a fulfilling life with?
Exactly. He even makes this comparison between her being a business owner
Okay.
and if she worked at the post office, suggesting that her expectations would be different if she had a more traditional job. Do you think he's implying that certain professions hold more weight in the dating world?
That's a curious point. It seems like he's implying that how society views status and success can influence our dating choices and maybe even our own sense of self-worth in the dating market.
Right. And it's not just about her career. He also focuses on her age and the fact that she has a 13-year-old son, suggesting that those factors make her less desirable to the kind of men she wants to attract.
He even brings up the question of her son's father, who she describes as being out of the picture.
Right.
Which adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
For sure.
And I think it really highlights the unique challenges that single parents, and particularly single mothers, often face in the dating world.
Absolutely.
It's almost like he's saying that there's this hierarchy of desirability in the dating world.
Right.
Single mothers, especially those with older children facing an uphill battle.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from pointing that out. He even asks her if she would want her son, hypothetically, if he were a high earner, to bring home a woman with a child.
And what does she say?
She says she would be accepting.
Oh,
But then Samuels challenges that, suggesting that most women wouldn't feel the same way.
Huh. Interesting. So he's trying to highlight a potential double standard.
Yeah.
Like the idea that women might have different expectations for their sons than they do for themselves.
Exactly. It raises an interesting question about how societal expectations and personal values sometimes clash, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to family dynamics and relationships.
It's a really thought-provoking point, and it kind of leads to one of the most controversial moments in the whole video.
What's that?
When Samuels suggests that she seek therapy.
Oh, wow.
He even tells her straight up, "You're not dealing with reality."
That's pretty harsh.
It does seem pretty harsh, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if he's overstepping his boundaries as a relationship advisor.
Right.
Like, is he genuinely concerned for her well-being, or is this just some tactic to provoke a reaction?
And you have to remember, this is all happening live on his show.
Oh,
So there's definitely like an element of performance involved here.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think about the impact of his words, not just on the woman calling in,
Yeah.
but on his audience in general.
Yeah, he has a huge following.
Right.
His videos go viral all the time, so his message is definitely reaching a lot of people.
It's important to keep in mind that his perspective is just one perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and his approach can be pretty polarizing.
Speaking of polarizing, his comments about what a woman brings to the table also sparked a ton of debate.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Like when she mentions helping a partner with his business,
Mm-hmm.
her love of gardening,
Right.
her focus on self-improvement, and his
Right.
response is basically, those things don't matter to most men.
Oh, wow.
It was like he was dismissing all of her personal qualities and interests.
Like they weren't marketable in the dating world.
Exactly.
It's like this idea that what we value in a partner and what society says is important don't always line up,
For sure.
especially when it comes to relationships.
And he also seems to suggest that there's a disconnect between what women say they want in a partner and what they're actually attracted to.
That's a really complex issue.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to this broader conversation about gender roles and societal expectations, you know?
Yeah.
Like, are we really free to choose our partners based on our own values?
Right.
Or are we still influenced by all these deeply ingrained societal norms?
That's a question that probably doesn't have an easy answer.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. Especially in the context of this conversation.
One thing that stood out to me was how much he focused on the racial dynamics within the Black community.
Oh, yeah.
He often frames his advice within that specific context,
Right.
which adds another layer of complexity to the whole discussion.
For sure. And his comments about Black women and their dating choices have been particularly controversial.
Yeah, it just highlights the fact that there are so many different viewpoints within any community, and we have to be careful about making generalizations.
Absolutely.
It's also interesting to consider how this video functions as a form of entertainment.
Oh, yeah. How so?
His blunt delivery and the intense reactions from his guests, it makes for really compelling viewing, even if you don't agree with everything he says.
It's true. He's definitely a skilled communicator.
Yeah.
He knows how to keep people's attention.
It makes you wonder, though, if the entertainment value sometimes overshadows the actual advice being given.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It raises questions about how we consume information and entertainment these days. You know, are we really looking for genuine insight?
Right.
Or are we just drawn to the drama and the conflict?
It's a blurry line, and this video seems to blur that line pretty effectively.
I think it's a good reminder to be critical of the media we consume.
Yeah.
And to be mindful of the impact of the things that we're watching and listening to.
This whole conversation's like a Rorschach test. Oh, yeah. For the viewers, some people see Kevin Samuels as like a voice of reason, right? Other people see him as just perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
Yeah.
Why do you think people have such different interpretations?
I think it comes down to the fact that he's talking about really sensitive topics.
Yeah.
Relationships, success, societal expectations.
For sure.
These are all things that people have really strong opinions about.
Right.
Often based on their own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that people kind of project their own beliefs and biases onto his words.
Right. It feels like he's intentionally using provocative language
Yeah.
to get those strong reactions. Do you think that's a responsible approach for someone who calls himself a relationship advisor?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tough. you know?
Yeah.
It's this balance between being direct and being potentially hurtful.
Right. Right.
I think it's important for viewers to remember that his perspective, while presented very confidently, is really just one viewpoint among many.
He often presents his views as if they're these universal truths.
Yeah.
Especially about what men and women want in relationships.
Right.
But I imagine there's so much nuance.
Oh, for sure.
And individual variation that gets lost in those broad generalizations.
Absolutely. Human behavior is complex.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to relationships.
Right.
So to say that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to dating, that's just oversimplifying things.
It's also interesting to think about how this video, despite being so controversial, has sparked such a huge conversation. It's clearly resonating with a lot of people, even people who totally disagree with Samuels.
That's true.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I think it speaks to a bigger cultural anxiety about dating and relationships in today's world.
Right.
Like traditional gender roles are changing.
Yeah.
There's all this economic pressure.
For sure.
Social media is constantly showing us these perfect images of what a successful relationship is supposed to look like. It's no wonder people are looking for answers and guidance.
It's true. And Samuels, despite all the controversy, seems to be tapping into that need for guidance.
Yeah.
Even if his approach is a little hard to swallow sometimes.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to society and showing us all of our anxieties and uncertainties
About
dating relationships, even our own self-worth.
For sure.
So where do we go from here? What are some of the key takeaways from this whole deep dive into the Kevin Samuels phenomenon?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of critical thinking.
Okay.
We shouldn't just accept anyone's perspective as the absolute truth, especially with something as complicated as relationships.
Right.
We need to look at different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Consider all sorts of experiences.
Right.
And in the end, we form our own informed opinions.
It's a good reminder that these conversations
About
gender roles, societal expectations,
and what makes a partner desirable.
Yeah.
These are always changing.
Absolutely.
There's no right answer.
Nope.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
And maybe most importantly, this encourages us to look at our own values, our own priorities.
Yeah.
What do we really want in a partner?
Right.
What kind of relationship are we trying to build?
Important questions.
These are the questions we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
Instead of blindly accepting someone else's definition of success.
I like that. So as a final thought for our listeners, I'll leave you with this. How much does financial status matter to you when you're thinking about a potential partner? Is it as important as Kevin Samuels makes it seem? Or are there other things that you value more? Take some time to think about your own beliefs, your own values. You might be surprised by what you discover.